Hello and welcome to another episode of Toole Box. My name is Joe Toole, and yeah, let's dive right into Friday's episode. Today I'm going to be looking at KDA's Pop Stars video clip, which isn't directly, it's not a video game animation, but it is video game adjacent, I suppose. And yeah, I watched the whole thing before I started doing this recording, and man, it had been a little while since I'd seen it, but it's such a great watch. And there's not really even that much going on during the clip. It's like a fairly simple but complex video, you know, like there's only one camera move, and that's the camera's moving backwards through the whole thing. There are some slight camera shifts here and there, but for the most part it's just slowly tracking backwards. The colors are probably one of the more impressive things, and of course the animation. And like I wanted to touch on one of the more complicated parts of the animation, I guess. Like I was going through it trying to figure out what exactly it was that I wanted to talk about with the animation. And there was a walk, there was the dancing, of course, there was some more simple movements, you know, just like head nods here and there. But I really love this section of the song, and I also really love the movement here. And it's also, I don't know which of this was hand keyed and which of this was motion capture. I have a feeling some of the dancing was motion capture, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, let's just get stuck into it. So here we go. Yeah, so it's just this section. Okay, cool. So the main parts that I wanted to touch on here were let's do spacing today, because I feel like this whole clip has like a really strong sense of spacing. So yeah, let's get stuck in. Okay, so the first move that we're going to look at is this one right here. This jacket pull, which is such a cool, trendy little thing. Let's go. So she hits this pose, and I'm sorry, I don't know any of their names. I don't play League of Legends. She hits this pose right here. Let me change colors. It's going to be hard to choose a color for this one. Oh, red seems to stand out alright. Hits this pose right here. Which is like quite an interesting one. After tracing over the full thing like this, you really get a sense of the appeal that they're working with here, like paying a lot of attention to silhouette with the shape of the hair and like the angle of the torso to get like this nice foreshortening thing going on right here. Like, look how large this elbow is compared to like this elbow down here, and then also the twist of the torso. It's not like a direct twist, it's more like a twist that's doing, you know, instead of twisting like this, it's twisting more like this, I guess. So like this is the flower sack comparison. So we're getting this like nice stretch on this side, and then there's like a more of a compression on this side. You know what I'm saying? I'll draw over that with white so it's a bit easier to. And then the head is leaning this way as well, and sort of looking over this shoulder, which is also adding to the appeal. Like, you could probably do this pose straight on, like this. With both, you could see like both of the elbows, but it wouldn't have the same, like these are the hands holding the jacket. But it wouldn't have the same kind of appeal. And this whole video is like, it's all appeal. It's great. Oh yeah, So here's the spacing when she like pulls forwards. And you can see like, it's not just the hands that are coming forwards. Like the whole, gonna go back to red. The whole torso, like the whole, what do you call this, arm. And even this part of the hips is moving forwards as well. Like it's one of the things that I think a lot of more beginner animators struggle with, students, animators, whatever you want to call them, people who are new to animation struggle with, is isolating movements. Like they figure that, okay, so this is a movement where these hands are gonna pull on this jacket and then let go, right? And then what you end up seeing is exactly that. The hands end up going into IK and they pull on the jacket and the jacket moves, but the hips stay exactly planted, you know, like I think they don't like, and the same with the head, like the head might not even rotate as a result of this, and maybe even the torso doesn't move. It's just the hands pulling on the jacket. So yeah, I love the way that in this they've basically got the entire body into the movement. And if you look at the hair as well, the hair's doing some interesting things. I'm just gonna turn off my drawings for actually, yeah, turn off the drawings for a sec, just so that we can look at the movement. And you can see like as, drawing's gonna come back on, as she lets go of this, you get this sort of like nice scoop movement with the tip of the head, like it comes forwards and then relaxes back in down here, which is also happens to be like when she's saying the line, like this accent right here is happening on the head, scoop. Which is like a bit of an attitude thing as well, I think. Like you get a sense of like her personality in this head movement right here. So you can see like through the motion of we're gonna have her pull her jacket forwards and do this movement. We've also built in a nice little like moving hold on these hips, so she's not completely stationary, and also this personality beat on the chin, which is like pretty sick. I'm gonna skip ahead right here, because I realize that I've been going for about 8 minutes already. And tackle this last part, because I really love like the layering that they've got going on through here. So she's like bouncing, right? She's like jumping up and down. Jump, 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 jump. Let's just trace the bounce of the hip. Actually, let's trace the bounce. Interesting thing here, look at her hair. It's as if it's finishing like a simulation from a previous move, which I'm fairly sure the hair in this is actually simulated. Look, it goes from down here to up here over one frame. That might actually be a mistake, I don't know. Or maybe like in the, we get the sense that she was previously jumping, maybe it's not a mistake, yeah. So she was like already jumping when this is happening, and she's just finishing the move here. That's actually great, never mind, not a mistake. Like that's another thing a lot of early animators get wrong is as soon as the shot starts, they think that's what when the character's movement starts, but actually the movement should have been going on before the shot begins. It's like they're always alive, right? Like that's the illusion of life, that you're just trying to simulate that life, and you're trying to show it off through these different techniques. And like one of those techniques is to have the characters already in movement before the shot begins, like they're walking into the frame, or they're finishing saying something as the frame comes on, or like whatever it happens to be. Anyway, so let's track we'll track the line of the shirt right here, this flat line right here. Might be the easiest one to see. There's also some really nice squash and stretch happening on this bounce with the torso. I'm gonna lose the line as her hands cross over it right here. And you know what? I think what we're gonna see is gonna be a bouncing ball. And that's the end. there's more that I forgot at the start. Let's go back and get it. Okay, cool. Let's turn on ghosting. Hopefully that'll show us some bounce. No, not really. That's all right. We're just going to follow it along. So we're going to go forwards from now on. So it goes down, and on the last frame of the down, it pops straight back up again. We hover at the up, and then we come down pretty fast, and then once we hit the bottom, we bounce up. Interesting to note the squash and stretch on the top of the top right here, and the shoulders. So we'll just see right here at the top of the jump, or like, let's see, this is the down right here. It's stretched, right? So we get this nice stretching shape happening. And then when it hits, it comes back down. It continues to compress. And then once it hits the top of the arc, it has a chance to like catch up, like the shoulders catch up, so this shape catches up and stretches, and then comes back down again. And this is this is squashed down here. They're also playing with motion blur in a really interesting way. They're like during the squash and stretch, like during the movement, they'll like be blurred, and then it's, in these like extreme moments of squash or stretch, they'll remove the motion blur, or the motion will be less, so you get a chance to see these nice, like exaggerated shapes. And then they do this really great like left right thing, which is like, it's sort of an echo of what's going on with the hands, but it's nice to keep in mind that like the hips are usually the thing that's driving a lot of the motion. So you can see down here the way these hips are twisting left and right down here. And the like the torso and like the spine and whatever else is going on through here is just going along for the ride. And then these hands are kind of doing their moves, right? I wanted to tackle spacing a little bit more in this video, but we're running out of time. And I know that the spacing in this will take a long time to pull apart. Like it's fairly like tight spacing throughout the whole thing, with the like large gaps reserved for these faster movements that they do, like through here when all the blur is happening. Then they'll like hit a pose and the spacing will go really tight again. It's like a little bit cartoony, but also like has like a flair to it. It's actually seen really clearly in these moments when the train's normal lights come on. So right here, she'll do this thing where she's like down here holding this pose and this hip spacing, like it's pretty tight. And then she'll come up, hop, hits it here, and then continues to hold. So it's like this nice slow in, slow out kind of a thing. Although the out is like way faster than the in. You get this like really nice slow in pose right here. And she's doing something similar to what the original girl was doing, this one right here. In the beginning, this pose, she's like mirroring this pose a little bit with this right here, the shoulder forward, torso twisted. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, there is another move that I wanted to get through here, all of this really nice stuff, but I knew that going into this I'd bitten off more than I could chew, so yeah, I think that's enough for today. Let's go over some of the stuff that we talked about really quick. So we talked about appeal again. We talked about how building personality into specific gestures, like this chin dip right here, helps sell the character and helps like further drive that appeal. Oh yeah, we talked about squash and stretch through hitting these poses right here and thinking, well, we could do things front on, but it's more appealing if we turn it to the side and twist it a little bit. We talked about picking up movement from the character midway through right here. So we assume that because we see this hair simulation sort of happening in the background, and she's also continuing over to the right of screen, that she was doing this sort of bouncing movement before the camera picked up on her. We talked about squash and stretch as well quite a bit through this bouncing section, and it wasn't necessarily like a hard squash and stretch. It was more told through motion blur and these shapes, right? Like this shape of the white shape of this top, and these shoulder, what do you call them, parts right here next to the head, and also the motion blur. And finally, we talked about how the hip drives everything, and that was especially evident through this like hip twisting part at the end. How it's like leading the action, and then the torso is kind of echoing it, and then these hands are doing moves on their own, but they're echoes again of what the hip is doing. Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. So thanks very much for hanging around. Hope you all have a wonderful Friday. Tune in, I guess, next week for Monday's episode of Toole Box. Have a good one.